For more on the human and economic toll of the migrant crisis, our Nathan King spoke with Daryl Grisgraber of the Refugee International, and he began by asking how struggling economies are dealing with the growing migrant population.
First of all, since Europe has been very focused policy-wise on interdiction and enforcement for migrants, there is, I guess, a law enforcement cost that you're looking at. And Italy in particular has been asking for the past couple of years for EU countries to help with that. It's been quite an expensive operation to do the rescues at sea. If we look at this with a more humanitarian approach, which is when there's a rescue at sea, look at these as people, lives who need to be saved, brought ashore, taken care of. It's a different calculation, right? Because then you have people either in detention where you have to keep them, or you have people who need to go out and rent homes, children who need to be in school.
What's cheaper? I mean, I know this is terrible, it's people's lives, but detention centers, putting them into schools, job training?
Generally, the idea is that it's a good idea to give people as dignified a life as possible, and therefore access to things like jobs and decent housing.
I suppose in the end it's stopping people coming in the first place, which requires economic policies in the home countries.
That's exactly right. Although maybe not conceive of it as stopping people from coming, but the fact is if people in developing countries feel like they have a decent shot at a decent life, they won't feel the need to migrate. Many people are migrating because they're in danger and genuinely fearful for their lives, but if you can resolve conflict and give some development aid where it's needed, people will feel able to stay in where they are.
We've seen a lot in the last few days about the Dominican Republic, which of course shares a border on the island of Hispaniola with Haiti, deporting potentially tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Haitians who have lived there sometimes all their lives. What's going on there?
Haiti's one of the poorest countries in the hemisphere, as you know, and it hasn't recovered from the earthquake. What are we going on, 4 or 5 years now? So sending a lot more people back there is just going to make life more difficult for everyone. Jobs are scarce. There is still a housing problem. There are still problems with clean water and people getting access to food. So, you know, if the Dominican Republic needs help, say, supporting Haitians, that's something they should ask for, but sending them back is not the answer. In a way, their two economies are so different. They really are, yeah. But in some ways a bit dependent on each other, right? Because remittances go back to Haiti, for example, just like we have, you know, migrants in the United States who send money home. And in Asia, you know, there seems to be a sort of hands-off approach recently with a lot of the boat people, especially from Myanmar, where we saw that not our problem sort of thing. Yeah. Obviously, there's an economic incentive to this as well to say, look, we really can't deal with these people. Yeah, but you've probably seen as well that Australia, for example, has some resources and it's been offering them to other countries to take refugees rather than just dealing with them on their own territory. So there is a commercial exchange going on there. Basically, you take these people and we will give you money and continue trade with you. And it's really not okay to be bargaining with refugees' lives that way. Yeah, some countries actually pay people to go away. Israel, I think, pays about $3,500 for people not to come in. I have heard that. I don't know if it's true, never been able to verify it, but I have heard that as well. And Mexico now, you know, everyone thinks about the US and Mexico's relationship, but Mexico is deporting more people from Central and South America than the US is currently. So this is incredible. Does it come down to economics and countries really not wanting to pay for people who don't live and were born in their own countries? I'm not sure it's only economics because, for example, in the United States, many of the migrants, perhaps most of them, pay taxes, for example. And of course, they do the work that a lot of Americans don't want to do. So I'm not sure refugees are necessarily, or migrants are necessarily economic drain. I mean, if you look at the study in some of the countries surrounding Syria, there are studies by reputable organizations that say that there is actually a boost in some ways to the economy for having refugees there. So it really depends whom you're asking and what particular aspect of it you're looking at. But the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, which is to say they're not a complete drain and they're not a complete boon either. They're just living their lives like all of us. And one man's refugee is another person's immigrant. I mean, here we are in the United States, who's actually founded on immigration, but a lot of people were refugees fleeing crises similar in Europe that we see in Africa and Asia today. Absolutely, and one of the things related to that is we always say, if you want to keep migrants out, that's a shame, but that's your business, but you have to let people seek asylum. People who are in danger, people who fear persecution, people fleeing conflict, who have a genuine fear of returning home, they have to be given a fair process to express that. And immigration can also add to your country economically in the long term. Absolutely, yeah. Well, I mean, that's how the United States came to be, right?